As in the treacherous weather forecast the Weather Channel gave, I was kind of hesitant to proceed down the interstate. The road ahead of me was going to be going into whiteout conditions. I sat at the rest area long enough, breaking through my conscience feeling of doubt of safety. I proceeded onto the freeway, guiding myself the best I could down the slow path of 2 lanes of tire tracks. I went about 10 miles per hour at a steady enough pace. There was nothing or nobody around me. After about 30 minutes of driving, I noticed in my rearview mirror that there was an 18-wheeler coming up on in my view. The 18-wheeler approached me very fast and got on my tail, and to me, it looked like he was only about 5 feet or so from me. He didn't hit me at first, but he did come up and touch and then push me. And as he pushed me, I did a 360-degree turn and then went off into the snow of the median, and I spun out even more, hitting the guardrail on the other side. I saw the 18-wheeler stop onto, I guess, what was the shoulder. The truck driver got out of his rig and then started to walk over towards me. Being shooken up because of all this and taking my safety, opened up my glove box and I grabbed my 9mm. The truck driver was only about 50 feet from my car. He was holding something in his hand to me, and it looked like a crowbar or a tire iron. He finally approached my driver's side door to take the bar he had in his hand, and he tapped on my window. I knew I was dead. I pointed the gun towards him at the window. He didn't know what was coming. He reared back and he smashed my window with this crowbar. And after the glass fell all over me, he reached and tried to grab around my throat. And he said, "You are going to die." I pressed the gun into his abdomen and I tried to pull the trigger, but the safety was still on. I heard him laugh. He was laughing like an insane madman. He opened his driver's side door and punched me into the face, and he knocked me out. Next thing I know is I'm laying in the snow with a crowbar pressed up against my neck. He again was shouting and saying, "You are going to die. You deserve to die." The only thing I could do was press my legs up towards his stomach to try to push him away. As all this was going on, there is still nobody that drove by. As he was still trying to choke me, I remembered that I had a pocket knife in my left front pocket of my jeans. I grabbed the knife, pulled it out, and opened the blade, and immediately I put it into his stomach. He screeched with a loud voice and began to step back. I then proceeded to grab his crowbar, and then I threw it at him, and it actually stuck into his chest. As he lay there, I assuming that he is dead, I'll look around for my gun, I thought. I found it laying over by my car on the ground in the snow. I picked it up and walked back over to this man. But as I got closer to him, I could see that he is reaching up to pull the crowbar out of his chest. He actually stands up and then pulls the knife out of his stomach as well. This man is actually still laughing and saying to me, "You are going to die. You need to die." What am I going to do? I thought to myself as I decided to start running, and I was running, he was also running after me. I made a huge loop back around and I hopped over the guardrail, then eventually made it back to my car. I tried to start it to no avail. I then decided to run to his 18-wheeler because it was still running. It was still idling. I hopped into his rig, I closed the door, and then I locked the door. He then tried to put a key into, I guess, the door to try to unlock it, but I blocked it by holding my arm on top of the lock arm at the door. This man did not know what was coming. But he also didn't know that I knew how to drive an 18-wheeler. So I proceeded to disengage the air brake, I put it in gear and slowly pulled away. As he's waving his arms like a madman again, I see him in the mirror. I thought to myself, he didn't know what just happened. He didn't know who he was messing with. As these thoughts came into my mind, and I thought that everything was just going to be okay, for apparently his load was heavy enough to get traction. I had the 18-wheeler going about 35 miles an hour or so, maybe faster. Then from what I could tell, I think I began to even slightly jackknife a little bit, and then it eventually came into a full-fledged jackknife, and there again, heading towards the median, smashed into the embankment. I had to have been driving for at least a half hour, and though I was scared and didn't know what was going to happen to me, the only thing I could hope for was someone that would pass by in a car to check on me. But nobody did until about 2 hours later. And it was a police officer and a rescue vehicle. After they pulled over onto the shoulder on the same side of the median where I was sitting, I saw someone getting out of the police car. It was actually two persons. It was the police officer, and though I could not believe it, I could tell that it was also the truck driver. The truck driver began to point towards the truck, and as he was yelling something to the police officer, from what I could tell, he was telling the cop that I stole his rig. And I went ahead and stepped out of the truck, and the police officer drew his gun and told me to freeze. He told me to get on my knees and put my hands behind my head, and they both walked up close towards me. The cop stepped back about 10 foot, and then the truck driver came towards me. He got close. The cop told the truck driver to finish what he had started, and I couldn't believe what I just heard. The truck driver stepped forward close to me. He reached out both of his hands again and put them around my throat, and he began to squeeze and wrench my neck. The only thing I could do was gasp for air, and I felt like my brains were going to squeeze out of my ears. I heard the police officer start to laugh just as crazy as the madman did, which was the truck driver. They were both laughing. Then I saw a bright light. I heard faint music in the background, and I was laying in the snow with no harm, but no one was around. I was not cold. I was not scared. I felt like everything was going to be okay. I heard someone off in the distance say my name very loudly. I looked into the distance, and I could see a man and a police officer, or a person in uniform, standing in the middle of the interstate. They were standing in the middle of the interstate with blowing snow, and it was getting all over them, and eventually it was building up all over their face, all over their bodies, and they looked like snowmen. These snowmen were standing like they were nothing but snow. They were frozen. I tried to walk or run over to them to see what I was seeing, and I tripped over the guardrail, and I fell into, I guess it was a creek from what I could tell, in the middle of the median, and I was in the middle of nowhere. All of a sudden, I woke up in a hospital with my wife and my brother and my mother surrounding me at the bed. I heard my wife say, "You made it." "What happened?" I asked. My wife told me that I was in a car accident with a truck driver, and the driver saved my life, and he contacted the police. My wife had told me that the truck driver had to break my windshield to get me out. She also told me that he had to use a crowbar to break my steering wheel so he could get me out. Then she told me that he took me to his rig so I could stay warm for the first officer to arrive, and then I passed out. Folks, I know I got a little tied up there for a second about the snowman, but I still can't believe it. The only thing that I can say about this situation is that make sure that you understand that when you are by yourself in bad weather conditions and you're driving, that you need to take extra precaution just to make sure that you have a game plan just in case something happens. If you become unconscious in any way, you never know if you're going to be saved. And in my case, it was a trucker. It was a trucker who actually saved me. And the only thing I can guess is that this accident actually must have happened as soon as I left the rest area. And then after that, I woke up. I woke up to my senses, I guess, because this story is 100% true. But the only thing I can't understand is that I don't know where my wife came from, because I'm not married. And my mother has been dead for 10 years, and my brother is in prison. So forgive me if I get tied up about the snowman, because this is crazy. Remember that. Remember, wintertime can be deadly in many ways.